Hello! Welcome back to another video on knots and knot history. My name's Kevin, I work down at the ships as a sailor, and we're going to be talking about a different knot today called the Sheepshank. So, like in our last two videos where we talked about the bowline and the wall knots, both of these are mentioned in John Smith's Sea Grammar and in Henry Mainwaring's Seaman's Dictionary. In the Sea Grammar he writes, "The last is the sheepshank, which is a knot they cast upon a runner or tackle when it is too long to take in the goods. And by this knot they can shorten a rope without cutting it, and as much as they list, and presently undo it again." In Henry Mainwaring's Seaman's Dictionary, the sheepshank isn't listed under knots like John Smith's. Instead, the sheepshank is given its own place under the S's section and is described as, "Sheepshanks is a kind of knot which they cast upon a runner when it is too long, and that they cannot hoist in the goods over the ship's sides unless it be shortened. And by this knot they can quickly shorten it up as much as they list, and instantly undo it again." It's interesting to note the similarities in both John Smith's and Henry Mainwaring's description of the sheepshank, as well as the wall knot and bowline from our previous videos. We do know that John Smith published the Sea Grammar in 1627. Henry Mainwaring's Seaman's Dictionary was not published until 1644. However, manuscripts of Mainwaring's were in circulation as early as 1623, which means it is possible that John Smith took a lot of influence from that document when he was writing the Sea Grammar. In this time period, copyright laws are not as robust or as strict as they are today, so it was a lot easier to copy someone else's work in your own publications. That may very well have been something that John Smith did with his publishing of the Sea Grammar.
John Smith! You dirty scoundrel!
Whatever do you mean?
This, sir! You have blatantly copied the words from my pen!
It's common knowledge, sir.
It is common knowledge that you do not copy the words from another man's pen! I demand justice!
I demand you remove yourself from my presence!
I demand satisfaction!
You understand the gravity of the thrum cap challenge, Mainwaring. He who strikes with a thrum, justice by knot tying, will be done.
You quote that which is well known, sailor. I was there when the challenges were set forth. I demand satisfaction by ancient sea rights.
Very well. I accept the duel of knots. It shall be.
You understand the challenge, gentlemen. At noon, you shall tie 3 knots of old, in the usual manner, at the signal of the boatswain. The loser shall never set to sea again, shall never feel the sea breeze upon your face. Begin at the signal of the boatswain. May the wisdom of the ancient mariner be with you.
Begin.
It's a tie.
Despite this, both sources are an invaluable tool for helping us learn about history and knot work. The sheepshank itself is still a really valuable knot for us to understand things, and there are lots of variations of the knot. Today, the usual description is for the knot to be used to shorten a line. This doesn't necessarily mean for excess line if a section or tail of line is too long. In Ashley's Book of Knots, the sheepshank is described as a temporary means to ease the strain around a weak or wounded section of rope, and comes in handy to shorten an automobile tow rope or a hay tackle fall. Now, there are lots of other variations on the basic sheepshank that we just described. To make it more secure, we could add seizings or toggles onto the basic sheepshank. Another potential alteration is what's called the navy or man-of-war knot, or we could add multiple loops or marlin spike hitches onto the sheepshank as well. Nowadays, the sheepshank doesn't see as much use. This is partially because of the proliferation of synthetic lines for ropes, which are a little bit easier to slip, making the sheepshank more unreliable. Plus, we use lots of different methods nowadays for hauling cargo that weren't available to people back in the 1600s. However, that doesn't mean the sheepshank isn't still important for us to learn about. The sheepshank is a particularly good line to learn about making knots in the bight of a line, which might have been part of the reason that Smith and Mainwaring included this knot in their descriptions in the first place. This alongside the bowline, which is a basic knot that is still used for a lot of different purposes today, and the wall knot, which is important for sailors learning about how to work with different strands of rope, might be why these three knots are so fundamentally important and serve as a basis for sailors learning about more complicated knots after they've mastered the basics. If you liked learning about the sheepshank, consider coming down and visiting the ships at Jamestown Settlement to learn how to make the knot for yourself. Have a nice day!